Hello. This session, I want to talk about reducing the number of codes and actually manage our states inside our application. You know, when you're writing an application which is very advanced, you have to reduce the number of codes. You know, this is the only difference between an amateur and professional developer. Professional developers write their codes in a legible and neat and arranged way, but actually the amateur people write codes that they are not very legible and also they are not actually very neat. You need your codes for further updates, so you have to have an arranged code so that you yourself or actually any other developer can use it easily for future updates. For example, an amateur person may have, for example, 700 lines inside one page, but you should remember that the maximum number of lines in each page is about 150, or at maximum it is 200, and you shouldn't exceed this number. Because if you have more lines in each page, you are going to face lots of problems in future for further updates. Or if you want to hand in your application to any other person, they're going to face problems in your codes. So what you should do is you have to reduce the codes, and it has two advantages. The first one is that your codes are very neat and arranged, and the second one is that you can easily manage them for future, that I'm going to talk about it today. For example, you have created a page named main, and inside this main there are 4 children. For example, this is the first child actually, and there's a text inside it. For example, in the second child, again there is a text, and in the third child there is another text, and the fourth child, again there is another child. You want to, for example, from the second child to retrieve setState function, and you wanted to have all the main retrieve the setState. If you want to write codes for each of these ones and to use normal codes, it is going to be very difficult, and actually you have to put them inside a stream. And actually maybe in some simple application it is easy, but in advanced applications you cannot do it, and actually we can say it is impossible. Then the codes will be very complex and it will be very difficult to manage. We have a library named provider library. It manages all your codes, and also it starts or manages the setState for all the child or children you have for your page or application. It can, for example, retrieve what kind of widgets you want for all the contents in your main. For example, you have a text here, and for example there's written 4 inside it, and you wanted to retrieve a function and change it to number 5, and you want to do this to repeat it actually in child 1, 3, 4, all of them, and there is a text that is written 4. You want to read that one and retrieve the function to increase the number, for example from 4 to 5. You have to actually use this kind of library, which is called provider. So what is provider library? This library puts number 4 that is located in the child 4 to number 5, and actually does this for all the children. So in your advanced applications you have to use this library. If you don't use this library in your applications, you're going to have a very complex and complicated codes, and even you yourself who have written the code will have problems understanding and reading your codes, and actually they won't be neat, yes, and actually In English, we call it dirty codes, yes? So, we are going to use provider library. What should we do to use this library? We have to add provider like this. I have used the one, so I'm cleaning them and I'm writing again. So I write provider here, colon. I use version 4.0.4. After selecting this, we should select package.get. Remember that your internet should be connected while you are using package.get. I have used it before, so I have imported before, so there is no need to have internet connection now. But make sure that your internet is connected when you are using package.get. After selecting package.get and importing the provider library, we have to go to main, and inside the main, and I have run the emulator, and I have written these simple codes before. Instead of putting the scaffold, we are going to use a multi-provider. So this is a class called multi-provider, and it is related to provider library. And then it gives us a list of providers, and we are going to use some of them. So it doesn't recognize that, so we are going to select a provider and then press Alt-Enter, and so it imports them. And as you see, the error shows that provider is required. So we place the provider, and it is a list of providers. We just only need one of them for this session. So we select the provider here, and it shows a class, and we are creating the class for our project. I create a folder, for example, I name it manager. And this manager, it is going to work with backend. We want to actually input all of our codes inside the provider. You might not understand what I'm saying at the moment, so you have to wait until the end of this tutorial so that you can easily understand what I mean. So in a Stock Manager, I'm using backend. So all the codes that we are going to use inside the backend are going to be placed in this folder. We create a class inside this folder, and I name it backend.dart. I press the enter, and it is created. And this is the backend class, which is extended from. So it is extended from change notifier. And actually, change notifier means using provider class. I will tell you what is the meaning of change provider in the coming parts. Sorry, I have said change provider. It is change notifier. So it means it notifies, it gives information to all the childs that we have here. So it divides the information. It just acts as a reservoir, or for example, saving section, that it distributes the information that is available to all the states. And all the states will receive their information from this section. Now, we place a void inside this, and we name it change data. and we change this one to notifier listener. When we are retrieving the changed data from all the children, the set state will be retrieved. And set state is retrieved when we are retrieving the children. So we can know that set state is retrieved or called for all of these children. So when we are retrieving change data or change notifier, the set state is retrieved for all of the children. And we write here text val equals 0 and int get text val it should return text val. Or we can do something else. We cannot put these, and instead of that we can, for example, write increment and decrement. So I write increment and then place a function to summing 0 and 1, and decrement is for reducing this 0. So I write here increment and we increment the text val here. You can also reduce your codes inside the backend and then you can send them to another class. You can do it too. So what should we do now? I write that the text val should change. For example, we create a class named change2, change2.increment, and we give text val to that. So that's it. So what is change2? Change2 is a class that we use it to reduce the backend class or make it smaller. So I create change2 now. Actually, it should be change1, but I'm creating change2 now, and then I will create change1. So change2.dart, and I write class of change2, and then I place the int increment function inside it, and here I get an int val from it, and the val should be returned val plus 1, or actually we can say plus plus. So that's it. We can also do something else. We can click on that and then Alt and Enter, and it asks us to import, so we accept the importing. Now we want to create a class for decrement, which is going to reduce the number. So we write void decrement, and here we place text val equals change1 dot decrement. Okay, that's it. And we place text val inside it, just like the one we talked about, but here it is going to reduce one number. So that's it. So we're going to create a class like change2, and we name it change1.dart. and which has extended from, actually there is no need for extending. And I write in decrement and we ask it to get an int val, but the val should be returned like, for example, minus minus, or reduce just one from that one. So we click on it and we press Alt and Enter, so the problem is totally solved. So after creating these functions and created the backend function, we have to use it inside the main. So what should we do? We are going to use the backend function as our provider. So we write change notifier provider, which is a class actually. Then we write create. So what should it create? It should create class of backend. So I write backend here. So that's it. And this is the provider we have selected. And this multi-provider has a child. And for this child, we are going to create a customer for that. So I write customer. Sorry, I've written customer. It is consumer, yes. I think it is consumer. Let's check it. Yeah, it is consumer. And we create a consumer for that. And this consumer is used actually for using something, yes? Actually, this consumer going to use backend, yes? So if we want to use, for example, this provider inside a backend, we should use consumer. So for this consumer, we have to say that which provider should it use. We ask it to use backend class. So we come here and we create a builder for that. And this builder, it has a context and a counter. And it is a private function. These are not very important. And this context and counter are not very important. And the context means the backend's context itself, so it is not very important. And the codes are written here, but before running the application, you won't understand what they mean. So we have to run the application and just wait until we are running it. And inside this builder, I have to return something. And the return is actually the scaffold, yes, that we have to private. So I place a scaffold here, and inside the body of a scaffold, I place a column, and then I will place some children inside it. And I change the main access alignment to center so that the child is placed in the center. And I use reformat code in order to have them arranged. Now I enter here, and inside the children of the column, I place another child, and actually it's a class, so I name it child1. So I want to create child1 inside the min. So I write child1 here and I place it inside the main. And then I create a class named child1. I place all the children from child 1 until child 4 here. And this is a class of child 1 extended from a stateless widget. So as you remember, I told you previously that we first place a stateless widget and then we change it to a stateful widget. And I press Alt and Enter and choose the first material, and I retrieve the build here. And then click on the stateless widget and press Alt and Enter and then convert it to a stateful widget. And instead of return, I place whatever I want to return here. I place a text and I want it to retrieve a function whenever I click on it, and the text should change in all the widgets I have in my application. For example, if it is number 4, should be 5 by incrementing, and by decrement it should increase, for example, to 3. So increment increases the number and decrement reduces the number. So by pressing increment it should become 5, 6, 7, and by decrement it should for 3, 2, 1, and like this. So I should return a widget here, for example, center widget, and I place a child inside the center. But before placing this child, I go to the build, I retrieve the backend function. For example, I place a variable and I name it, for example, connect to backend. And I connect it to backend class. So it equals with provider dot off. It does not know it, so I click on it and I press Alt and Enter. And then I choose import provider library. And I write off, and it shows a provider of the backend. So I write provider of backend. And what should it do? It should give a context and listen for that. And it wants me a context, so I place this context, and it wants also a listen. And all the time you should set listen as true. So all the time it is true. Because it is by default true, there is no need to change it. So it is not important to change it. I press Alt and Enter on the keyboard. You might ask, what is listen? Yes? Look at here, if you want to. So if you want to have the changes inside this child, by using the listen, it is going to call or retrieve all the set states. So if you change listen to false, it is going to only run the function and it's not going to retrieve the set state. In order to just call or retrieve the set state in all the children, you have to make listen as true. And right here, if you look at what I did, I use connect to backend, and then it equals the text val here to string. And it is going to change the text val inside the string, and it is going to show it inside the child 1. because text val is 0, it is going to show us number 0 inside the children. So we have created child 1 here. We click on it, we press Alt and Enter, and then we import it. We are going to just create child 2, 3, and 4 one by one. In order to place 2 children here, I use column, and inside the scaffold, I use button navigation bar. I place button navigation bar. So it is better to create a row for child 3 and child 4, and we can go to child 4 too. And I place a row here which is composed of child 2 and child 3. So I write children, child 2, and child 3. So that's it. And I place the main axis alignment as center, so I want it to be placed exactly in the middle of the row. The horizontally, it should be exactly in the middle. And I choose main axis alignment as center, and then I create child 2 and child 3. I create a class, and I name it child 2 and child 3. So it should be, sorry, child2.dart, and then I change it to class, and the class of child 2, which has extended from stateless widget. And then press Alt and Enter, and I overwrite the method. And then I use again Alt and Enter to convert this stateless widget to a stateful widget. And then, before returning the scaffold here, we have to go inside the build. It is better to place return to back, connect to backend inside child 2. So I copy it, and then I pasted it exactly here. And then I press Alt and Enter. I'm going to solve all these problems and errors we have here. So for child 3 and child 4, I have to do the same. Now I enter child 2 and create a scaffold, or actually we can place a floating action button. There is no difference, because inside the parent class we have created the scaffold. Whatever we place inside the return of child 2, it will be one of the children of the row which is inside the button navigation bar. So it is going to be placed exactly here, which is inside the scaffold. So I place floating action button here, which has a child. And the child is, for example, from the icon type, and then I use icons.add, and then we create an onPress for this floating action button, and inside the onPress I write that it should retrieve increment from connect to backend. After that, it should again retrieve change data. What does it mean? It means that inside all the children to retrieve the set state. Set state enables us to change all the text inside all the children we have here. So if it is increasing, it is going to increase in all the children. So by retrieving change data function, we are changing the numbers inside all the children we have. So I press Alt and Enter and import the library. The other thing that I have to do is I create a class just like child2 and I name it child3. So I write child3.dart and then I create the class which is extended from stateless widget. And I press Alt and Enter and I import the material. And again, I press the Alt and Enter again to overwrite the build. And again, I press Alt and Enter here to convert it to stateful widget. And I come here. And just like child2, I copy them and then paste them here. And then I again Alt and Enter to import the library. And then I again press Alt and Enter to import library of backend. Then I come here. I import child3 by pressing Alt and Enter. I said inside child3, we have to create a class. And we name it, for example, child4. And we have to create the class of child4. There wasn't any need for creating or putting the backend here because we want to put the text inside child4. So I come here and I create child4. So I write child4.dart. And then I can write class here, class of child4, which is extended from stateless widget. And here I press Alt and Enter. And I press Alt and Enter to overwrite it. And then I change it to stateful widget. And I connect to backend here because there is no need to it here and paste it here. And again, I press Alt and Enter and I import it. Actually, I import the library. And here, I place a text. And the value is connected to backend dot text to string. Now I'm going to describe whatever I did. Yes, so I import child4 by Alt and Enter. I have placed everything I had. I created child1. And then I created two children named 2 and 3 with button navigation bar. And then I placed an action button in my application that when the user clicks on that button, this value, which was placed inside the child1 and child4, to change. I want to show that you can see this change in all the childs and actually retrieve set state. So instead of writing whole code, you are just creating a very short code. So it means that instead of creating one class with thousands of codes, you're creating 10 class with, for example, 100 codes. It is easy to manage. So now I hot restart to see what happened. This is our main that we wrote the codes. If I place a space here, it would be better. When I click on plus, this is child 1. Let me show it here. By clicking on this, the number changed from 0 to 1, and it is child 4, and this is child 3, which has child 4. And I place the text inside child 4, and the value is exactly the text swap. So we see that the values of child 4 and child 1 are the same. When I click here, both of them change at the same time. But as you remember that we placed the button inside child 2, but now by pressing it, we are changing child 1 and child 4. So it means that by using one children or one child, we retrieve the set state in all the children. By this way, we reduced all our codes, yes, and now they are very arranged and neat. So instead of, for example, make it a very busy page, instead of that, we created, for example, many classes, and we placed, for example, few codes. This can help you a lot in big projects. If you want to, for example, write a very complex project, but do not use this method, you are going to be in a very bad situation, because you are going to have lots of codes or maybe thousands of codes, and you can never manage those codes. Yeah, you cannot understand what you did. But by using this method, you can arrange all your codes and you can write very complex and complicated applications. I hope you enjoyed this session. Goodbye until next session.